Today, folks, we'll take a look at the legendary career of the Motorsports honorary Triple Crown winner, Graham Hill. Let's get into it.
I want to share my passion by bringing to life the career of one of the greatest racers of all time, Graham Hill. He was charismatic, fearless, a showman, and above all, he was a champion. It's a story of life and death in the fast lane.
Looking at racing cars, it seemed to me that they look less and less like cars to me and more like planes with these sort of aerofoil arrangements at the back here at the front. Does it mean that you're generating so much power now from the engines that in fact you've got to have this sort of arrangement, otherwise the thing is just going to take off?
Well, I personally don't generate that sort of power, but well, I have my moments, but
spinning wheel of fortune as cars and drivers make their entrance. Former world champion Jack Brabham driving a Lotus.
I love cars and racing. I always have.
Two BRM, one was driven by Graham Hill.
As a young boy, some of my fondest memories involve the thrilling sense of freedom and adventure they conjured up. Now, hold on to your hats.
Graham Hill driving the BRM in great style.
I mean, he had the little thin moustache and the great hair. And he had a wicked smile. He made it all look so easy. But now, I've come to realize things rarely are. So I want to find out more. What is it that makes you win? What is it that makes you a champion? And he was a champion, twice at Formula One, plus winner of the Indy 500 in America, and at the end of his career, Le Mans too. Racing's Triple Crown. No one had done that before, and no one's done it since. Incredible.
I think after the war, I think my dad and all those racing drivers of that era were held in awe because they were doing something so dangerous. So the skill they had in order to survive it was seen as somehow extra special because they weren't just driving a car, they were keeping themselves from death. I think perhaps they appreciated every minute they had.
Graham Hill, born in 1929, grew up with a fascination for all things mechanical, and on leaving school became an apprentice engineer in London. Then, at 25, his life took a dramatic turn.
there was an advert that said you could drive a racing car at Brands Hatch, and I think it was about £5 a join and 5 shillings a lap. So I went down and had a quid's worth, which entitled me to 4 laps, and it was those 4 laps that the bug bit. It was then that I decided this is what I wanted to do.
In 1959, he got his big break as a driver with the sport's serial underachiever, the British Racing Motors team, BRM.
BRM made its first public appearance in 1949. It was the motor industry's effort to put this country back on the Grand Prix map.
For years, BRM have been something of a national joke.
BRM, the first ever all-British racing car, and was laughed off when it failed to finish in 15 of its first 22 races.
All we need now is a little longer time to develop it, and then we hope to show the continent what we really can do.
Snap, crackle and flop, the BRM headlines.
The car was not very reliable, but we were very hopeful, and we kept thinking, well, it must be better next year.
Then the Owen organisation took over, so keeping the name alive. In the mid-50s...
And it was. But after years of disappointment, things began to improve. In the V8, they developed an engine that was more reliable and delivered more power for its capacity than ever before. And in Hill, they had a driver of massive potential.
As soon as Graham Hill got in that car, he came out smiling. And you didn't see Graham Hill smile very often. This is it. This is a good car.
Graham Hill and the new BRM now lead.
I could see that he was improving, but he never struck me as a natural driver. His was sheer determination and guts. Not like, Sterling. It's his praise for him, because obviously it's easy to do well if you've got a God-given gift to drive motor cars. He virtually lived at the factory in 60 and certainly in 61, so there was a sort of a welding and coming together of the driver and the team.
So, with a car capable of winning, Hill was determined to make his mark. In April '62, he arrived at Goodwood to take on the king of British racing, Stirling Moss.
I would hate to think what it was we were talking about, but probably nothing to do with racing. And we're probably talking about crumpet, actually.
Off they go on the 42 laps for the Glover Trophy.
What happened that afternoon changed racing history.
It was in the 35th lap that disaster overtook Moss. Stirling had gone slap off the track. While he was being taken to hospital, the race continued at a scorching pace. Graham Hill in a BRM was the winner.
It was Hill's first Formula One victory. From then on, the new boy had to be taken seriously. As the season began in Holland, one man stood in their way.
The opposition in 1962 was arguably the greatest driver who's ever lived, Jim Clark in the Lotus.
Clark, Graham Hill.
Jimmy Clark was natural, but poor Graham had to work so hard at it. But by God, when he worked, he really worked hard.
There is a terrific dice going on.
For race after race, Clark and Hill fought against each other.
This is Grand Prix racing at its best.
If you're going to talk about the sheer speed, Jim Clark was in a class of his own.
Jim Clark took the lead right from the word go.
Throughout the season, the two men jostled for the top spot.
He's now well and truly in the running for the Drivers' World Championship.
Matching each other blow for blow, race for race. By the time they reached the season climax in South Africa, both drivers had 3 victories. Whoever won this would be world champion.
The tempo is hotting up, and the mechanics realize how much is dependent upon their meticulous work. Jim Clark has made the better getaway. Graham using perhaps a bit too much gas.
Ahead of the 17 starters lay 82 laps, nearly 200 miles of seat-of-the-pants racing.
The Lotus continues to pull away, but Graham does not let up. He is using his well-known stickability.
For lap after lap, Clark maintained a comfortable lead. No one could catch him.
All eyes are on Jim Clark, the potential champion. Both the Lotus and the BRM are being driven meticulously and to their capacity.
Then, on the 62nd lap, Hill had one of those things essential to all champions, a lucky break.
Jim Clark pluming a great screen of smoke behind the Lotus.
Nicest little puff of white smoke I can recall seeing.
Jim Clark's wonderful drive is over.
All Graham had to do was to keep his head, listen to the car, and not lose his nerve.
Checkered flag. BRM have done it at last.
Mission accomplished. Graham Hill was the first British driver to win a world championship in a British-designed and built car. For Hill, world champion at 33, life would never be the same again. Racing was entering its golden age, and it had found its leading man.
Graham had an image right from the start. The moustache, the slick back hair, this very engaging rogue, if you like.
His military bearing, the out-thrust jaw, and I think that combination of things just made the general public fall in love with him.
There are some people who get the public's imagination and some people who do not. And Graham Hill was certainly very much one of the former.
Graham Hill. You've travelled most of the way this season behind Jim Clark, Graham. What would you say is his most outstanding characteristic as a racing driver?
Well, I think getting across the line first. It's a bit irritating, actually.
Do you always know when he's behind you, Jim?
Yes, I can always recognise that moustache anywhere.
Well, gentlemen, look, seriously now, next year, change of formula, bigger engines. What does this mean to the firm of Hill and Clark?
Well, speaking as an old man, I'm rather looking forward to it. Jimmy, unfortunately, has got to use one of our engines, so just to show there's no ill feeling, I'm personally going to assemble his.
Despite a hat-trick of Monaco victories and the World Championship, in 1966, Hill was still hungry for more. To completely establish himself as one of the world's top drivers, he sought out another challenge, 4,000 miles away in America.
America's most famous auto race, the Indianapolis 500, begins.
The Indy 500 was said to be the largest single-day sporting event in the world. 500 miles round an oval circuit at speeds pushing 200 miles per hour in front of 250,000 spectators. It was the biggest, brashest and richest race in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, former world champion, and here at Indianapolis in 1966. Preceding his name is the word rookie. How do you feel about it?
Terrible. I personally don't feel yet prepared for the race, and I think it'll be quite an interesting experience for me.
He was certainly right about that.
Less than a minute later, disaster.
It was the world's most dangerous race. Pre-66, 13 men had lost their lives, and many more had been injured in pursuit of glory then.
Now they are on the track, 33 cars, 33 of the best drivers.
Undeterred, Hill and 32 others took the starter's flag on the 30th of May. Given the circuit, the speed, the lure of the prize, and every driver's desire to win, what happened next was entirely predictable.
Looks back near the first turn. Tires fly in every direction.
That's all hell let loose. There were cars going everywhere. I just got through, and another fellow just hung onto my tail and followed me through. And we just got out of the mess before the track went whoop and closed up. And it was almost as though we were like an orange pip.
The smoke is billowing now, up high.
A.J. Foyt, the legendary Indianapolis driver, was seen to be climbing the fence at one stage to get away from all the flying debris. Lots of cars were involved. Thankfully, nobody was injured. So it was quite an unsettling start to the race.
As to be one of the worst accidents ever here at Indianapolis.
After all that carnage, it must have taken nerves of steel for Hill and the rest to line up again just 90 minutes later. But that's what they did. And 3 hours after that, only 7 cars were still in the race. And Hill's was first over the line.
Fantastic triumph, to go there, to keep the car in one piece, and so composed, and to win as a rookie. Fantastic achievement.
Hill was the first driver since 1927 to win at the first attempt. As the next season began, the call of the track was once again irresistible. In 1967, he signed up to drive for Lotus as joint #1 driver with his long-term sparring partner, Jim Clark.
Which, if you think about that, was pretty brave, because Jimmy was the great driver. He was the yardstick. Shows Graham had a lot of confidence in himself, that he was prepared to join what was by then Jimmy Clark's team.
Both men were driving a new car, the Lotus 49, powered by a Ford Cosworth engine. Undoubtedly the best car around.
It cost £100,000 to design the new Lotus Sports. Number 5 is Jim Clark's. Number 6 is Graham Hill.
Graham pretty much held his own. They were two drivers who were both worthy of being spoken of in the same breath.
Despite their history, as teammates, the charismatic Hill and the modest Clark became unlikely friends.
My dad was very fond of Jimmy Clark. They were very yin and yang. One was loud and decisive, and the other one was nervous and quiet. And I think they got on really well.
The atmosphere was very different in those days. The drivers live in the same hotels, travel in the same aeroplanes, go to the same restaurants. It's not like that anymore.
Traveling the world as teammates strengthened their relationship.
And then, of course, we got to Hockenheim in 1968 in April.
A relaxed and confident-looking Clark and Hill prepared for their next head-to-head in a non-championship Formula 2 race. On the 5th lap, it became clear something was wrong. Clark had crashed.
No one really knows to this day what happened. But Hockenheim was a circuit which plunged through dense forest. And for whatever reason, Jim Clark's Lotus flew off the circuit into the forest, and he was killed.
It's the one thing nobody could have envisaged. He was the safest driver. Jackie Stewart said it was like the atomic bomb going off.
A stunned Graham searched among the wreckage for answers to explain the horrific death of his teammate, his rival, his friend.
Though it's very difficult to compare drivers from different eras, I think the record book would show that he was one of the greatest drivers that we or anybody else who's followed motor racing over the years has ever seen.
And this was where Graham Hill stepped into the breach.
And it was in the Lotus 49 that in 1968, Hill was to show the world that he was more than just a racing champion. Just a month after Clark's death, Hill drove to victory in Spain. And then, at Monaco, the very next race, he did it again.
Massive result for the team. Hugely motivational. It lifts them, it lifts their spirit. Suddenly, Lotus is able to believe that despite the darkest tragedy, there is a future, and it's Graham Hill.
Remarkably, by the time they reached Mexico for the season climax, Hill had dragged Lotus up from the deepest despair to within striking distance of both the team and the Drivers' World Championship. The men to beat were Denny Hulme and closest contender, Jackie Stewart. Almost 50 years ago, Hill revved up on the starting grid in the heat of Mexico City. Right from the flag, Graham grabbed the lead. On lap 5, Stewart passed Hill, taking the lead. On the 9th lap, Hill retook it. It was now between Hill and Stewart. With 10 laps to go, Hill pulled clear from Stewart, who dropped to 5th with fuel pump trouble. Now, only engine failure or a crash stood between Hill and the World Championship.
Hill wins the race and the championship with Colin Chapman's Lotus.
It was Graham's leadership, Graham's charisma, his, come on chaps, let's get up off the ground and get the job done attitude that kept Lotus at the top and enabled him to win his second World Championship, and an outstanding testimony to a truly outstanding man.
1968 was the year in which Graham Hill won the World Motor Racing Championship, which he first won in 1962. Hill made sure of victory in his Lotus Ford in the Mexican Grand Prix a month ago, at the end of a long, frustrating and cruel season.
Hill was back where he wanted to be, at the top of the pile. But in the high-octane world of Formula One, no one is king for long. His reign came to an abrupt end in America in 1969. On the 92nd lap, his Lotus suddenly spun into the air at 150 miles an hour, rolled over twice, and Hill was thrown out with serious injuries to both legs. Although Hill put a brave face on it, at 40 years old, his career looked to be over.
Well, they're getting ready in time for next season, yeah.
And that was only 5 months away. An extraordinarily ambitious goal, when it was not certain he would ever even walk unaided again.
Some of us wouldn't even go back to an office job after breaking both our legs. Never mind get back into a Formula One car.
He faced months and months of grueling physio.
Pull these toes up towards you. Hold them up there. Go on, don't let me push them down.
I'm having trouble at the moment lifting my foot, and she just goes with the finger, goes like that, you see, and down my foot goes. Whereas training, you know, I can't hold my bed bars like this, and I'm spraying over and I sweat standing up.
Straighten.
He applied himself religiously to getting better again, during the course of which he became even more of a public figure than he had been before.
He was called the most out inpatient they had ever had. I mean, You couldn't tie him down.
Everybody loves a trier, and the public adored his determination to soldier on.
And to interview Jackie Stewart, we've invited from hospital his friend and great rival, Graham Hill.
What particular advantage has this car got over, say, the car I was driving?
Well, it's faster, Graham.
Well, I'll buy you a drink for saying that. That's fabulous. Thank you very much. Now, have you had any, did you have any sort of funny moments during the year that you could talk about?
Not very many. Not very many I can talk about. But
no, neither did I. Now you come to mention that. Anyway, Jackie, I'd like to congratulate you for a fabulous season. I'd like to wish you a lot of luck for next year. Not quite as much as myself, but I hope you succeed with this new car that you're going to be driving.
Well, I wish you good fortune too, Bill.
Thank you, Jackie.
But behind the scenes, the solitary and spirit-sapping work continued.
Point 1. 20. I want to get better. I mean, I want to get my legs working so I don't walk around like a Dalek. Because I'm fed up with hobbling about like this. And really, it's a battle against myself, which I'm trying to win at the moment.
But was this internal struggle, this desire to race again, heroic or misguided? Finally, on the 30th of January, Hill eased his damaged body back where he felt it belonged, into the seat of a Formula One car. And on the 1st of March, just 5 months after the crash, he was at Heathrow. Next stop, South Africa, for the first race of the season. He'd made it. Only champions like Hill could ever justify the enormous risks taken in pursuit of their dreams.
The first race in the 1970 Grand Prix season. Surely one of the most colourful circuits in the world, and one of the most elastic.
This was what all the hard work in recovery had been for. Hill was determined to make an impact.
A moment of truth for the man who many people reckoned would never drive again.
Graham's first race after his recovery, he wasn't really 100% fit again, a long way from it.
Ahead lay 80 laps, over 200 miles in the burning heat and dust.
He was in extreme pain during the whole race. Imagine driving with all the G-forces that you get in Formula One on corners and the acceleration and the braking.
Into the straight, a blur at nearly 180 miles an hour.
10 drivers, including legendary figures like Surtees, McLaren and Hicks, retired early. But still, Hill hung on in there. The checkered flag taken by Jack Brabham. But the crowd's heart belonged to Hill.
There were grown men crying when Graham crossed the line. He had a standing ovation because of the grit of his recovery.
I just told everyone, well, I'll just hop down there and give it a whirl and see how it is. Knowing full well that I was going to give it more than a whirl.
He finished in a point-scoring 6th position. That was a mark of the man.
Barely able to climb out of his car, Hill still had time to sort out his hair. What a champion. It was an encouraging start, but as the season unfolded, despite all his experience and guile, Hill was never able to repeat his former glories. Many thought he would call it a day and retire.
He wasn't doing as well, and people criticised him for it, but Graham's attitude was, I like it, mate. I like the driving. I want to keep racing. And 10 out of 10 for him for that.
In fact, far from taking his foot off the pedal, he entered one of the world's toughest endurance races.
Laurent is a grueling race because there's extended periods of time at the wheel in a very dangerous situation.
In 1972, Hill was invited to join the French Matra Simca team.
Leading the parade as they go past the pits, and the pace car managers are the Matra Simcas, fighting to give France their first victory in 22 years. And immediately, Sever and Pescarolo pile away.
The French were desperate to end 2 decades of failure. The team's strategy was to maneuver its star driver, François Sever, into a position where he would win.
So if there was someone who wanted to go faster than the others, immediately there was a reaction in the pit stops. Slow down.
But Graham had other ideas. The thought of playing second fiddle to anyone was simply not the way he did things.
This is Graham Hill coming into the pits now. It looks as if Hill's going to get out. There's Pescarolo waiting there to take over.
The moment when Graham Hill really made a difference was during the night when it was raining. Thanks to his talent and his fighting spirit in the most dangerous conditions, he was absolutely fantastic.
A series of lightning-fast night laps from Hill meant that on the Sunday, his car was positioned right on the tail of Matra's #1 car.
Now we see the Pescarolo Hill Matra, but I'm sure that the Matra Simca team want a Frenchman to be first, and perhaps the Frenchman they'd like to be first more than any other is François Sever.
But in the morning's confusion and exhaustion, suddenly everything changed for Sever and his co-driver.
Just look at the damage to the back wheel of Howden Ganley's Matra Simca number 14, the car he shared so bravely with Sever. Certainly, their lead has gone.
All Hill and Pescarolo had to do now was keep out of trouble until 4 p.m., the end of the race.
There goes the flag. Superb drive by Henri Pescarolo and, of course, his co-driver Hill.
Formula One world champion, the Indy 500, and now, finally, Le Mans. The Triple Crown was his. Hill ascended to the ranks of the racing immortals.
He is the only guy in history who's ever done it. Absolutely unique achievement.
No one had done that before. No one has done it since. And I find it very hard to believe that anyone will ever do it again.
With his place among the all-time greats secure, he started his own team. And in 1975, retired from racing.
It was late last night when Hill's own Piper Aztec smashed into a screen of trees and burst into flames.
Tragically, on the 29th of November, 1975, Hill had been flying back from France when he crashed. 5 members of his team died alongside him. St. Albans Abbey flowed over as a family came to mourn its husband and father.
Graham Hill dominates the race.
On this journey, I glimpsed a little of the world Graham made his own. And it opened my eyes to what it takes to be a champion. A true racing legend. He was a man who followed his passion and who took enormous risks. But the payback for that was that he must have had the time of his life.
Beside your undisputed skill, damn it, what single factor do you think contributed towards your victories this year?
I think, again, my skill. But this year, perhaps more than ever before, on the streets.
I thought you did. You were certainly driving extremely well on the straights. I must agree with you there. Now, superlative skill, but you won 6 Grand Prix, which is, is hogging it slightly. What do you? I mean, there's 7 Grand Prix as the sort of record. You're obviously hoping for this. Where do you think that you could have done it and it didn't happen?
I don't think that's a fair question.
Well, we, I use the royal we, are delighted, of course, that you retired. And I can't tell you how much we're going to miss you. I just can't tell you.
Well,
not here, anyway.
So there we have it, folks. The legendary career of Graham Hill. Formula 1 champion, IndyCar winner of Le Mans 24 Hours. If you like our videos, please like, share and subscribe for more content. Thank you.